We really should work out. I don't know why I haven't been Matzliach to get everyone to get a book.
I tried. They're not available.
Oh.
They're not available.
You have to buy the set.
I did. I tried 3 times. I went to the
No, that's what I said. There's this one here. Come separately.
Oh, I didn't know that. I bought a set.
This
I
one's
think it would be here for many years.
No,
No, look, I have books.
They said out of print. I screwed them in 3 times.
Really?
I went 3 times.
I bought the set for the next 20 years. Like we're good to go. We're long.
Feel better though. No, I'm just saying, if we're winning something every week, so glad to have a book. Plus, you so much like listening to me talk. Okay. We are in Maimer Vav. We're going to touch upon, which I think is like such gewaltige Rosen der Reis, the secrets of how things work. The story so far, what we explained so far, was the Indian of Neshama Yisera, so we all have that clear, yes. The Indian of Zayin Royim, so we all have that clear, yes. These are the components, very, very important components. And then on Monday we described the purpose of the Lev Yehudi, the Lev Yisrael. And the Lev Yisrael, let me just digress from Reb Tzadok to the Vilna Gaon, which I actually read on Shabbos in the Birkei Avos here, that the Liba Shel Yisrael Hu Mishkan HaNeshama, which means, that's not poetry, that's technology. The Liba, what is the Lev on a spiritual level? The Lev, the ticker, is a mashal. The nipshal is the Lev, right? B'chol levavcha, b'chol nafshecha. The Lev. Rachmana lipa boy. What's the Lev? So the Lev's purpose, its job is to be the Mishkan. What is a Mishkan?
A resting place.
Shechina, a resting place. The sanctuary.
Sanctuary.
What's a sanctuary? The place where the holy thing can happen. That's what a sanctuary is. A place which is miyuchad for kedusha. A place which is muzman or muzuman to kedusha. That's what a mishkan is. A mishkan unto itself is a building. Beis Hamikdash is a building, but that the Shechinas Hashem, or let's put it better, Hashem could come. The Shechina is sort of like a thing, but Hashem could come and be shoichein b'soicheinu. Shechina shoichein b'soicheinu. For that you need the kli. The kli is the Mishkan. The kli for the neshama, which is the same mechanism happening on a microcosmic level, is the Lev. So if you want to understand what's our Lev, the Lev is the place where the neshama lives.
But not in a physical sense.
Not in a physical sense.
In the Moach?
No, it's a place where we think. It's physical. The hands are a place where we touch. We feel. The Lev, so it's interesting, but not for now, why the Lev is associated with Ragesh and emotion. It's the seat of emotion. But for our purposes, it's the Mishkan. Bilvavi Mishkan Evne. Which doesn't say in place, but it's a song. Right? Bilvavi Mishkan Evne. It's a nice song. I'm saying it's not a Zohar or something. It's Rav Hutner's words. Bilvavi Mishkan Evne. Rav Hutner took the words based out of Choyus Salvavas, but he was a great composer, a great poet. And the niggin was that in my Lev, Mishkan Evne, I'm going to build a Mishkan. That's where it's happening. What's the rest of the words? There's going to be an Aish, which we described was according to Zohar, that shuckling device which in us, when we daven, keeps us moving. We're the flickering fire. Aish Tamid Tukadba. So that's the Lev. So it's interesting that the Lev is the seat of emotion. It's also the place, the Mishkan of the Neshama. Mashma, that the Regesh is the seat of the Neshama. With me on that? That's the Mashmas. So therefore, Rahmana Livaboy. So a person is like completely devoid of all emotion, completely bilti rikshi, like a hard person. It's correct to say that without that breaking of the lave, there's no makom for the neshama to rest.
Is the lave connected to the malach? That if you don't have it up here,
It's a different stage of development,
separate?
meaning things start with the lave. The way it works is things start with the lave. Shul and Yad goes on first, and I get a lave. After you have a holy emotion going through the lave, it goes through the rosh, the malach. Gets filtered through the malach, and when it gets filtered through the malach, you have a davar sholem. But you see, the Kotzker stated, there's nothing more full than a broken heart. Pirush davar is that a heart which was penetrated, which was softened, which is not like Paro's heart, by Atazik Hashem is lave Paro, by Yiksha Hashem is lave Paro, but a lave which is a lave Evan, like Yirmiyahu said, which caused the Chorban Beis Hamikdash, there's no makom for the Shechina. So the lave, sometimes a person has to be broken in order for your lave to be gamish enough to be a Mishkan for the neshama. So I'm not trying to explain why sometimes righteous people suffer, but this is why. Because at the end of the day, if you survive that situation, so you're better for it. I know, like your lave can be more patuach and more sensitive and more open, and hence a bigger mishkan for the neshama. So we don't want to suffer, but the fact of the matter, maybe we could do without suffering. Maybe there's a way to do it. But the lave has to be broken to be complete. That's the irony of the lave. So things go through a process of shel yad, shel rosh, until it comes out. We're going to learn this be'iyun now. I'm just giving an introduction.
It's interesting that lo aleinu, that when a person has a heart attack, they feel like when they survive it, they feel much closer to Hashem. They feel like, they have to do better.
There was a guy in my shul in Muncie who had a quadruple bypass. And he came to shul after he finished, and he said, "This is so gewaldic. I'm going to recommend to all my children whether they need it or not." It just feels really good with it. See, like overall, But okay, so the lave is the beginning. If you don't have the lave, you don't have the neshama. And then there's a process of taking something l'maisa. It doesn't end with machshav either. It has to go to your yadayim. But what does the Navi say? V'asiroisi es leiv ha'evan, samti b'chal leiv basar. I'm going to take away from Klal Yisrael the leiv ha'evan, the collective leiv ha'evan, the coldness, the inability to feel.
Is this also related a little bit to the idea that Baal Tshuva stands at
Okay, so we're going to get this.
A higher place, because he starts from a place of brokenness, and he also sees the brokenness in the world in a different way.
So have patience, because we're going to see it even better. No, even you're right. You're mamish on the right track. I just want to make one point before we go into this more, is that it's not me as Reb Tzaddik, but we're going into places which are gewaldic. It's just unbelievable that we're privy to the secrets of how the world works and how a person works and how a Baruch works. It's an unbelievable thing. But I just, tears are a product of the lave when it's not filtered by the moach. We could have an emotion which is ayuma, it could be very terrifying, very sad, very happy, but in most adults, the process works so quickly that our brain lithicizes it before it takes us over. So something is going from the emotional to the seichel, And therefore, real men don't cry. Babies cry because their moach is not developed. The leiv is gewaldig, right? But the moach is not developed. So what happens is that, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm sad, you hurt me, you insulted me, you left me in my crib. I'm crying. Why am I crying? Because my moach is not filtering it. If somebody is, anybody who's daton kalois will cry more easily. So the Chazal say, be careful with nashim shedim asan mitsuyan. So asma. So you're crying. That's sad. We can't take it. What's the problem? The problem is a dima is listen to this. A dima, in a way, is an extremely, extremely holy thing. Tefillah, Rahman Alibabai, tefillah comes from the leiv, not. So a dima is the product of leiv without moach. That's what dima is. It's neshama. So if you're talking about leiv without moach, the hainu neshama and Mishkan on neshama, so you're talking about something which is very, very kadosh. So the Arizal, let's say, used to see somebody crying, even a child, he used to take it and eat it. But the Shalach HaKadosh says that, in other words, you want to ingest that Kedusha. The Shalach HaKadosh writes that, tears are the detergent of the neshama, in my words. So he says that if a person has dima, an adult has tears for whatever reason, and you would actually rub it into your face, you'll have a hadras panim and an aura. Not recommending, I'm not giving prescriptions for aura, but I'm just saying that this is the kedushas hadima. Kedushas hadima, the shar hademois loin ninalu. The shar hademois loin ninalu is where it means that the leiv is penetrating, as the koach to penetrate, without the moach, without the rosh. Now, that's not the way. You can't walk around crying all day. Tisha B'Av, you can cry. Avelos, you can cry. Give me a couple minutes, just because I get lost quickly. So, what we have over here, what we're going to learn today, in the next few minutes, is the side, we've touched upon it in the past, but the side of Ychuda Ilaa and Ychuda Tataa. Okay, let's ingest the terminology. Ychuda Ilaa, Ychuda Tataa.
Amen.
So, if you start off with what we're familiar. What we're familiar with is Rashi, Medrash, that at the end of his life, Yaakov Avinu called all his sons together, and he was ready to tell them about Mashiach, or as we said a few weeks ago, he was ready to be Mashiach. He was ready. Mashiach. We'll explain. Mashiach. We're ready. We went through everything already. Went through enough. Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. We're ready. Tikkun Olam. Nistalka b'menu Shechina, say Chazal. All of a sudden he lost the Ruach HaKodesh to Shechina. Shechina. Nistalka b'menu Shechina. Listen to the words carefully. Nistalka b'menu Shechina. What's the Shechina have to do with BK Shagalas? Okay, it has to do, both religious. But there's something deep here. Nistalka b'menu Shechina, meaning that he had the Shechina.
You have connection.
He had the Shechina. It means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Sheichin by, he's ready to be Megala. The Lashon of Desire is different from the Lashon. He's ready to be Megala, not as HaKates. He's Megala's Atzvay L'Mashiach. Desire Alabah. But Nistalka min Shechina. He looked around at his son standing around his bed, and he said, "You messed up." Right? He looked at them and he said that one of you is off the derech, one of you, your lave is not tahar, and this is not working. What a holy moment, right? Something's not working. Something's wrong. Somebody's maybe a machshava zara, maybe some avodah zara here in the room. something that in order for this to work, this has to be 100% Torah. The sons, Shevatim, brothers, said to Yaakov, immediate response, no. Kishem she'ein belibcha elo echad, kach ein belibenu elo echad. We're talking about lave. Because why? Because we're talking about Shechina. So just like in your lave there's one, in our lave there's also one. Our collective. Right. Well, kishen belibcha einay elo echad, kach belibenu einay elo echad. So you can learn means that each one of our lave is a lave tar bar li'olikim. Rav Kotzker, which is the neshama al tikach mimani, we have the lave tar. Or you can learn ein belibenu, collectively we are echad.
This is from the Medrash. This is in Zohar.
Medrash. And so
Is that the labor of the brothers collectively, or including Yaakov?
brothers. We're okay. What does Yaakov Avinu say? It's a Gemara. The Gemara says, the Gemara wants to know, do you say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut out loud or quietly? It's a Gemara's question. So the Gemara tells a story. So Yaakov Avinu says, oh, okay. I'm glad you're echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam. L'meimer, the Gemara says to say it doesn't say in the Torah. There's no such pasuk. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam. Yaakov Avinu made it up. Or as I said last time, we talked about this. It's a pasuk that didn't make it into the Torah. It's a pasuk, just didn't make it into the Torah. So l'meibra lo'yamar lo'Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it. Lo'yamar hariyamar lo'Yaakov Avinu. So it is a pasuk. It's not a pasuk.
Chazal does this also.
Right, Chazal.
I mean, Chazal does it in Shas. They'll say Shneamar, and they'll
Make up something.
and the Tosfos will complain like there's no pasuk.
Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlech le'Elovad. Where's it at? Nowhere. It's nice. We all know.
Sounds nice, right?
Where's it say? So, a lot of things, a lot of psukim which are not psukim, Chazal do psukim which weren't written in the Torah. So we say you don't say it, something or you say it quietly. But okay, that's halachic ramifications of the Chazal learned to did from everything. The story is what we're talking about. We're background here. So the story is, he says, okay. So what's he saying this? Baruch Shem. Again, let's start again. Yaakov Avinu, because there was a key part of this. Yaakov Avinu wants to be Megal of the cakes. The sons say, Ein b'libeinu el echad. How do they say this? What's their lashon? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. They said Shema together. Just like Yaakov and Binyamin said Shema together. They said Shema together. Okay, you say Shema together. Yafeh. So Yaakov Avinu comes back and he says, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam. What's the puzzle? So the deciphering of this is that in order, which is, if you allow me, like every inch we go deeper into it is more relevant. But I just want to take it step by step, so otherwise my brain gets lost. I can't follow it. The first step is Yaakov Avinu's Gilui HaKetz. That means that there's Achtus Gamur. Achtus Gamur. Before Shema, there's Achtus Gamur. Why does it have to be Achtus Gamur? I'm not talking about Achtus between the people. We're talking about Yichud Hashem. Meaning, the tzaddik is Mekabel, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Toy, Vrach, Or, Choshech. It's all one thing. If you're a tzaddik, in the vernacular, if you're a madrega, there's no good and bad. There's no inequality. There's everything. It's not just a kol David Rachmana L'Tava, but there's one Hashem. Hashem is Toivu Meitim Zehu. It's only because things came into the Alma de Piruda, which will explain why that had to be. But the Bria of Vayavdil made Or and Choshech and Mayim and Oretz and Yitzhahar and Yitzhatov and people fighting, etc. That's all the Alma de Piruda, which came to. That's the development of the world. It's a good thing. That's if you want to, if you just have your tzaddik, you have the tzaddik, the Bel Tshuva. So if you just have one block, that's good. The block breaks up. You're breaking it down into its finest component. You have a chemistry chart. Doesn't work for me. It's the chemistry chart, but you have a breakdown of what's really going on here in the Echad. So Yaakov, in order for Mashiach to come, let's talk about Yichud Hashem. Why? Because he's talking about Hashem l'melech al kol haaretz b'yom hahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmoi echad. Right? That's Mashiach. He's echad. His manifestation is echad. There's only one. It's one, all the way one. So Yaakov Avinu is being mevakesh l'galus l'ketz at a high madrega of, let's call it now, a new term, Ychuda Hashem Ilaa. It's a yichud. Let's go parentheses here for a minute. Hashem created the world. So you have in the Sefiros, you have the Keser, beyond our understanding, which is Kulei Echad. And then you have the Alma Tepiru, the Chesed, Kvur, Sefiros, Netzach, Yisai, Malchut. Everything gets divided up. A little bit of Chesed, a little bit of Kvur. We're dividing things up into components. So it's not Echad anymore. So you don't have Ychuda Ilaa. What happens when you get to Malchut at the bottom of the Sefiros? You're tying it all together. That's called Ychuda Tataa. So there's Ychuda Ilaa, there's Ychuda Tataa. You understand this?
Mm-hmm.
Conceptually, nobody understands it, but conceptually we can understand. Ychuda Ilaa is before the Sefiros. Ychuda Tataa. We explained that the neshama that we walk around with all day, I hope, is the neshama which went through the Sefiros. The neshama Yisera is coming from above all of that into the. There wouldn't be a world as we know it if it was just Ychuda Ilaa. But it's okay. You're talking about Hashem Himself. So Yaakov Avinu loimes. Yaakov Avinu was beyond the any type of division at all, as was Adam HaRishon koydem achet. Adam HaRishon koydem achet, everything was echad. Everything was equal. He was looking for a shidduch with the animals. Everything was echad. Malchut. Circle.
Also have by Har Sinai Echad b'leiv.
Oh, b'leiv. You're on Bishmor. So what we're talking about is a madrega of Ychuda Ilaa. Let's go slowly because let's understand it. Yaakov Avinu looks and he says, "This is not working for me. Something is wrong here with you guys. Let Yaakov Haber be referred to. What's wrong? They were fighting like selling each other down the river. Whatever. Let's kill him. No, let's not kill him. A little bit too much alba de piruta. A little bit too much pirut. But this is what happens. This is what happens when you're going from Echad, Ychuda Ilaa, to Ychuda Tataa. There's got to be a lot of division between point A and point B. So the brothers are fighting, but they say to him, we're past it. Shema Yisrael, listen, Yaakov, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're Echad. But we're not the Echad that you're the Echad in. We're in an Echad of Malchus, which might be even a higher madrega than we're in the Echad of. You see, I never saw the side, but I once heard B'Shem the Arizal that when the brothers came into, 10 brothers came into Mitzrayim, they came in through different sha'arim. Right? Remember? This is the 10 Sefiros, this is the Pirut. They had to be separated. There had to be separation, not just Yosef. Everything had to be separated. Yosef is Mashiach, but Yosef has to tie it all together. That's what's going on. That's the whole story. Yosef has to tie it all together. So what it means is that yes, you're margish correctly Avinu Yaakov. You're margish correctly that there's a period, but we're tying the period together. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. It's okay. The period, the Shechina even, that was a period, but we came together. But by the way, just Isn't it so significant? You know, Yosef must have been like what an intellectual, you know, like I'm just saying even from an Egyptian point of view, like, you know, he was a chacham, you know, Novo, ain't Novo, Kamocha, L'chol ha'aretz, Novo. Like that's Bina, it's even bigger than chacham. Novo, Kamocha. What's he doing when he sees the brothers? Vayev. He couldn't hold himself back from crying. There was an activation of the lave. The brotherly part of it, what was going on was that the pirud that had to take place, Ad Kedei Kach, that he was even offered them further, and Binyamin wasn't there. It was 10 Sefiros that were I'm going to tie you all together through Bechiyah, because the lave is the Mishkan of the neshama. It's the only way that we're going to have a Mishkan of neshama. So he ties them all together, and the brothers say to Yaakov, it's Beseder, Avinu Yaakov, Kishem shebelim becha. Eido Ela Echad, you're up there, Echad. Can't believe Beinu, Eido Ela Echad. Yaakov Avinu says, oh, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuso L'olam V'olam. It means, V'haya b'yayim ahu, V'haya Hashem l'melech al kol ha'aretz. Hashem Echad, U'shmo Echad. Raza Ushmo Echad, Hashem Echad Ychuda Ilaa, Ushmo Echad is where the manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which looks befurad, is all coming together. I couldn't make this stuff up. It's unbelievable. Hashem Echad, Ushmo Echad. Yaakov Avinu response, thank you. Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuso, Shem, Kevod, Malchuso, two key words here are Shem, looks like Pirud, Malchus ties the Pirud all together, L'olam V'olam. So we're okay. But you were talking about the Lashon Zayir before. I was talking Ychuda Ilaa, let's be Masak in the Chet right here and now. You see, it all takes us back to Gan Eden. How do we get to Gan Eden here? Question we all have. How do we get to Gan Eden? It takes us back to Gan Eden because Adam HaRishon Kodem Achet was in the Darga of Ychuda Ilaa. Comes the Nachash, and the Nachash says, what are you doing all there in that one block, that one echad? What are you doing there? Be better like Hashem. So many different Baal Koiches Kulam, so many different things in that echad. Let it divide, be like it, have Yodea Toiv, Ra. Let there be Toiv, let there be Ra, let there be division. It's good, it's good, it's good, it's good. He ate the fruit. The Tov V'Ra of Adam HaRishon. Tov V'Ra is the ultimate beginning of all Pirudim in terms of an Adam. So he went from Yaakov Avinu to the Shevatim. He went from Ychuda Ilaa to Ychuda Tataa. Now it's a bad place to be. Ychuda Tataa. It's a place of korban. It's a place of golus. It's a place of getting evicted from Gan Eden. It's a place of machlokas until you take it and you make Malchut. So I'll tell you the difference between Ychuda Ilaa and Ychuda Tataa. Ychuda Ilaa is immediate Mashiach. Ychuda Tataa can take a few thousand years. Because to tie everything together, whoa, you're talking about now without the Chet of the Etz HaDaas. So we would have, as the Ramchal says, we would have been in Gan Eden. We would have stayed in Gan Eden. There wouldn't have been even an Olam Haba. What do you need it for? What do you need a makom for neshamas? We're all here. There wouldn't have been a Tchias HaBasic because nobody's dying. There's no Misa in the world. So when you're talking about Ychuda Ilaa, it's pretty gishmak, in the sense that nothing bad ever happens. But Ychuda Tataa takes a long time. However, makom she balei tshuva oimdim ein tzadikim gemor michol olam sham. You're going to compare the tzaddik, which is Ychuda Ilaa, to the Baal Tshuva, which is Ychuda Tataa. Like if we can do it, you don't want to become a Baal Tshuva because you don't have to do Averis to become a Baal Tshuva. However, Echti Ashuv, it must be to be other losses Tshuva. It's not a derech deed for the Etz HaDaas. But let's say you were lucky enough to be there. Like, you're about Tshuva. So you're zoicha to be about Tshuva. So, I mean, in other words, like you successfully came through the operation. It goes back to the heart surgery. It's gewaldic. Is anybody volunteering? What the heck? Do a quadruple. Okay. Go for it. That's not my schedule today. Who's volunteering for this? Even if it makes you better for the I guess there are some people that are. But I mean, anyways, that's the nachash. Go for it, huh?
The Magali Mukha says on that Chava says back to Hashem, what do you do? She says, Hishiani. So he touches Hishiani.
Nachas Hishiani.
Yeah, Nachas Hishiani. He touches Hishiani. Is the Shin Yud is Hashem's Shem Shakai, but the Nachash stole the Dalet, and then Hishiani. Ani is Adnus with the Dalet. He stole the Dalet. And then when we say Shema with the big Dalet,
Here's your
it's
dog.
back to fix this Piru that was
By the way, what's the more simple shot for simple people like me? Hishiani. Shy, give me a gift. Nachash gave me this gift. Is it a good gift or is it a bad gift? I don't know. Like, go by child, learn for yourself. If he comes out of it, he comes out better for the circumstances. But who wants loy hate, loy start? Who wants to go through that? There's a tremendous amount of risk factor. Is it good? Is it not good? I was having a problem with my foot, so I went to a doctor. What does it seem? So he says, I don't know what this, I don't know what's that. He says, but if you want, coming on Wednesday, we'll do exploratory surgery. Right. Yes. I'll be there. What time? Like, that's all I'm going to do. I'd rather walk with. I mean, who wants to go into to Makom Sakana? Who's going to go into a Makom Sakana? Okay, so let's complete the Machshava. I want to give you a seer to understand this. Moshe Rabbeinu, Har Sinai, Paska Zuamos. Meaning we got back to the place of Adam HaRishon, Koydem HaChet. The Isha Echad, the Lev Echad, Mamash Ychuda Ilaa. Representative of that situation, we received the Luchos. Two Luchos, but they were Shayish Echad, a very solid rock. Two Luchos because there's two parts to the lake. You received it. You received the Chil of the neshama of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael does the Chet of the HaEgel, right? Chazra zu Amasa. They get back into the Chet of the Etz HaDaas, meaning, there's stuff going on upstairs, there's Egels downstairs, there's all kinds of kochos in this world. We're all over the place. What does Moshe Rabbeinu do with the solid rock lave of Klal Yisrael? Breaks it into
The broken heart.
broken heart. Breaks it into pieces. Now there's pieces. You make pieces, I make pieces. Yasher koach sheshibarta. But then what? Then he picks up the pieces. And we come to a situation of luchos, v'shivrei luchos, munachim ba'ar nachas. That's tzaddikim, and that's the balei tshuva. Munachim ba'ar nachas. What you have in that aron is the Ychuda Ilaa and the Ychuda Tataa. The Gemara says that Tizar b'talmud chacham sheshachach talmudai luchos v'shivrei luchos menachem b'ar nachas. So says the Gemara. Don't lose covet for a talmud chacham that went through a physical. It's a physical, like the bodies are bodies. It's something that's difficult to deal with. I had a kesher with a tzaddik for many years, and then all of a sudden his body wasn't working the same way. I said, you can't do that, you're a tzaddik. So I said to him, tzaddikim die too. Chaim died, Rabbah died, Rabbah died, Abaya died, Hill died, Avraham died, tzaddikim died. Goof is a goof, gets old, like a car. It's just, but, Tizar b'talmud chacham sheshachach talmudai, that crisis is a physical crisis, but it allows one to tie together even more on some level. And then you have the you know what happens when you take the shivrei luchos and you put it all back together again. You have a mosaic. That's the word comes from, right? Mosaic for Moses. You're taking it's in a way you could be more beautiful than the solid stone. So there you have Ychuda Ilaa and Ychuda Tataa. I heard from my Rabbi Yaacov Haber, I heard that I believe he was quoting the Arizal, but I don't know if it's Arizal. I'll have to see it inside. That the whole malacha of kiruv rechoikim is the whole malacha of helping people become balei tshuva is picking up the pieces of the luchos shniyos. That's what he said. I don't remember where he was quoting, but the imagery is fantastic because it all works in parallel. The Egel Hazav, they were paskas umasim. The Egel Hazav was b'itya shel nachash. So there was a chazra zumasam. The chazra zumasam, we're back to the Etz HaDaas of Toy V'Ra. We're back to the Pirud. So these luchos have to break into a bunch of little pieces.
Yes.
So what happens when Mashiach comes? We're taking all the pieces and putting them together into a beautiful mosaic. So that's Malchus. In the meantime, that's Malchus. That is Malchus. Malchus is only after Pirud. Malchus is when there's a thousand different neshamas or nefashos, let's say, at Buckingham Palace, but they're all walking in the same direction, at the same step, with the same hat, with the same uniform. That's Malchus. So Malchus is when you take the disparity and you try to tie it all together. So there has to be a Balshuva renewal at the end of times, because this has to bring together all of the shivrei luchos. But those shivrei luchos, the luchos, you have to have both. You have to have the luchos, which is Yaakov Avinu, which is Adam HaRishon Malchut. Yaakov Avinu loy base, doesn't even Tchias HaBeis. Yaakov Avinu loy base. That's the Ychuda Ilaa. It's down to the Ychuda Tataa, which is the shivrei luchos. Yaakov Avinu looks at the shivrei luchos kilu, and he says, "We're going to do about Mashiach. We'll tie it all together. We'll glue it together. That's what's going to be with Mashiach. It'll be okay, but it's a hard process. It takes a few thousand years. That's the difference. Ychuda Ilaa is right now. Ychuda Tataa, you need a few thousand years. Okay, Rabbi Yaacov Haber, we associate you for.
No, first one, the shniyos are broken.
Huh?
The shniyos are broken.
Luchos shniyos, luchos rishonos.
You
Shivrei
said,
luchos.
you said they're putting together the...
I'm sorry, the luchos rishonos, the luchos shniyos. Yeah, the opposite.
When
You're right.
Mr. Shapiro said, he said this was...
Luchos rishonos, shivrei luchos.
Rishonos, okay.
I apologize.
Okay, about demos. So... first of
Imahos.
all- Yeah, so... First of all, it says in desire, we don't want the demos to come out. It's
Demos.
not that they're out on their kodesh, but we don't want her to cry. Okay, and you related, because I'll say when Yosef was Megal himself was premature. So there seems to be an inyan to withhold demos.
Demos are like dangerous because of their kedusha. Whatever a person's going to daven for. So you don't want a crying woman who's upset with you around you, because kivit shadibasa b'tsuya. You know, it's mazkir. It's not the same thing, but it reminds me of the Maral says that the pshat in Ayin Hara is that there's no such thing as a tefillah from the lave which is not answered. A tefillah from the malach is not necessarily answered, or screaming is not necessarily answered, or even tefillah b'tzibur, but b'achmana libabai, right? Ezo avodah shebelev zu tefillah. Avodah shebelev zu tefillah. So if a person is jealous of another person, it's a bad thing. But it's something. It's an emotional point. It's something from the lake. Why do you have that? Why do you have that? And I don't have that. So there's a little silent tefillah, very silent. It's called the Mamadaka from the lake, which says you shouldn't have that. Says the Maral, there's no such thing as a tefillas halev, which is not answered. So therefore, an ein har could be macher of another person's metzias.
Even if it's just
Got to watch out for ein hars.
Even if it's a subconscious tefillah, it's still
If it's from the lave. It's one of those, like, forgive me, it's like a quirk of the bria, because it's a dimma gone wild. So you got to be careful. But with anybody, you don't want to get somebody's regesh or lave against you, because that's the seat of the neshama, and those tefillas do get answered. Mitzat Sheni, what you see from this is, like, here's the good news. We walk around all day worried about ein haras, but Mitzat Sheni, it's okay, so drive a smaller car or whatever, but the Mitzat Sheni of the thing is, the koach tefillah is unbelievable, because it means to say that if a person can, like, you put on tefillin, so you need for this, you need your yad, you need your rosh. If you give tzedakah, you need your bank account, you need your pocket, you need your hand. Like every mitzvah needs another thing. The keli of, right, like if you're eating matzah, like you need your mouth, you need your intestine. Like there's all, like the keli of tefillah is your heart. That's the keli. Like if your heart is absent in daven, it's like putting on tefillin if you don't have an arm or a head. It's missing the key Gashmi's component, if you will, of that mitzvah. The keli of the mitzvah of tefillah, not Torah. Torah's here. The keli of the mitzvah of tefillah is the lave. So it means that if we can figure out how to activate the lave, then our tefillah HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we should have v'nachas from our children and good health and parnasa is no worse than some evil lady's ein har. The koach of the lave, why? Because the lave is the Mishkan of the neshama. The lave is tahar. Lave tahar brought with you. Ruach nachain chadish b'kir. You gave me a lave, then that's the Mishkan for the neshama. Ruach kotzker al tikach. The ruach nachain chadish b'kir is the ruach part of the neshama. Nefesh ruach. So it's the ruach part, ruach nothing, chadish b'kiri. Now I got something to work with. So the koach of tefillah is unbelievable. The other thing that we just in my next 45 seconds is the Ychuda Ilaa. Like the other, like we understand the lay, we understand the Ychuda Tataa, but what you can't have if there's sinas chinam, you can't have the Shechina. Why? Because you're still in Pirud. You're in Pirud mode. You're not holding my Shechina. Okay, so Baruch Shem Kavod Malchut Le'olam, we're tying it all together. It takes a couple thousand years. Hopefully we're at the end of tying the knot over here. So it's like Doma to, like, we all know, it says already on the wedding invitations that, we used to be two half neshamas. Under the chuppah we come together as one. What's that? That's, we were not two half neshamas. We were once one neshama in Shemayim, Ychuda Ilaa. Then in the Alma de Piruta, we broke up into two half neshamas, and here in this world, we're tying the knot and bringing it together. That's what it should say in the invitation. So we go from Ychuda Ilaa to a separation, and then we're bringing it together. Is it easy to bring it together? Seldom. Is it easy to bring it together? It has to, first of all, be the right partner. Second of all, it's difficult for two neshamas to come together. Like it was difficult for Yosef and his brothers to come together. It requires emotion. It requires. It's just unbelievable what it requires. I think Shalom Bayis is like a nest. That's what I think. I think it's a nest. But it's a nest. You have it in the chuppah, it's a nest. You agree? It's a nest. If you have it, if you have that bracha, it's a nest. If you don't have it, so. I remember years ago asking Dr. Dupar, who was a human man in Black Pagano at the time. I said, how does a miscarriage happen? If it was something you ate, something you drank, back to genetics. He said the only question you can ask is why doesn't it always happen? It's a nest. A child, for everything to come together, right, is a nest. It's the same thing. Like why do people not get along? That's not a kasha. Because they're two people. Why should two people get along? They can taste it. Like I just show you. You want to see how people would naturally get along? Just look at two Malchut. Making with us. It's unbelievable. I get involved into these things. It takes me 3-4 hours a day just to calm everybody down. And overstress it, like, I can't look at this, we're sitting like this, we're sitting like that, walk through this way, that way. Why? Because because they don't have one neshama coming together. That's where you see the period gomor. Lei ksuva, the lei Rabbi Basikra. How can you have a ksuva without a sikra? How can you have it? You can't have it. So you have Yosef and Achim. You have Shivrei Luchos. The hard part is tying it together. So you can't have binyan in a time of chorban. You can't have Beis Hamikdash where there's sinas chinam. The job then of Golus is to tie it all together and be ma'ached and say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Le'olam. This takes time. It's a serious process. It's a difficult process, but we need to do it. I'm a little bit worried, B'chlal, here's my political comment. I'm a little bit worried that sometimes I feel like we're going in the wrong direction on this. I don't like what's going on. Like we're dividing more and more. Like what's going on? This is Mashiach's time. I'm a little bit concerned about this. Actually, I'm a lot concerned about it. Like what's the pilugim? Well, think of that word. Peddling. Like what's all these people? Haflagot. It's like the Dar Hapalaga. Everyone's going in a different direction. So you couldn't even have a big Bavel when everyone's going in a different direction. So I don't know. Like there has to be a very sophisticated Ychuda Tataa. Somebody's going to be able to bring this together, all these parts with the Ychuda Tataa. So where everybody's dancing b'machol, and we're saying Zeh Hashem Kivit Eloi, right? Yoshin. Everyone's a separate entity, but it's a circle. Like I think this is what we have to worry about here in Tammuz and on this. What's going on with this period? We're going to go backwards. Like we're finished. Like we're finished. I hope with the Hasidim and the Mistagdim. No, it doesn't. It just doesn't work. I'm saying it not because I'm like we have to work on it. We have to work for this. We have to join the cause. I hear there's kids tell me that there's excellent, beautiful boys that are not getting accepted at Yeshiva Gedolos, not because of anything, but because they're Sephardim. Like, hello, does this make any sense? In this day and age, what are we living in the Middle Ages here?
All Yehudim have to make Aliyah. That's the problem.
That's one thing. I'll get involved in the Machlokas. Okay.